Avoiding getting a tan is a bad idea for your health, contrary to what some would have you believe. And in this video, I'm going to break down the science, why that is, by connecting it to a few key factors. One of them is POMC. One of them is mitochondrial function, specifically NAD+, and the other one is downstream transcription of POMC, and specifically alpha MSH, and immune function T cells. There's much more to the reasons why you absolutely need a tan, and avoiding one is really bad for your health. But I'm just going to go through these basic reasons in this video. If you enjoy my videos, please remember to hit like and subscribe so you can get notified when I release my next one. So let's start with the benefits of melanin. And I have notes so I don't get sidetracked. Melanin is important for immune function. It's also important for energy production and sustained energy in order for your body to do all the things that it does to keep you alive and even more than that, to allow you to live. It scavenges free radicals, or technically known as ROS, reverse oxygen species. It absorbs heavy metals. Melanin can actually store several squares of its own weight worth of heavy metals and escort them out of your body, which is incredibly cool. It's also important for thermal regulation, or keeping your body temperature where it needs to be. Of course, that's not the only piece in keeping you warm. You have brown adipose tissue, sweat glands, and a number of other factors, but it does play a role. It also helps with drug detoxification. So when you're taking medications or drugs of any kind, melanin is an important part of that process. And, of course, it's extremely important in redox reactions, which is essentially your internal antioxidant mechanisms where they're adding an electron to a chemical reaction to reduce it, which is a technical word for it. Redox is health. You must always improve your redox before you do anything else. Otherwise, you don't have the capacity to benefit from any of the protocols that you're doing, unless they're protocols specifically to improve your redox. Get it? Recently, science has been obsessed with the creation of artificial melanin and the application of artificial melanin on skin, which is incredibly bizarre to me, considering you can just go out and get a tan and make your own. So let's make the connections to the three major factors. One of the connections is going to be tying the importance of having a tan and the danger of not having one with NAD+. NAD+ is something that you make in the mitochondria, and it's incredibly important for everything to work properly. When you have a drop in NAD+, you have disease, disorder, problems everywhere, depending on where that drop is. And the trigger to make NAD+ is highly reliant on circadian signaling, which means you must be outside, you must be getting the right light to your skin and eyes, because both your skin and eyes contain non-visual receptors that are telling cues and dictating all of your circadian signaling molecules. There are so many of them to coordinate all of your clocks, from your master clock that's located in your brain to your peripheral organ clocks to the protein called clock in your cells, and all of those smaller molecules that play a huge role in this circadian signaling. NAD+ is crucial to all of these signaling. When NAD+ falls, everything becomes a disaster. And if you are not getting a tan, that means you are not getting outside. And that means you're not getting the proper signals. Instead, you're staying inside where your circadian rhythm is being destroyed. You're losing oxygen levels in your cell because you're not getting red and infrared light through your walls or windows. And no, artificial polarized light is not the same as the sun's red and infrared light. And while it can be used, it is not an equivalent, but you're also missing the other important signaling. It's not just red and infrared light that signals, but also the balance between red and blue present in the sun, not present in your artificial light. It's also the UVA that rises that is extremely critical to many functions in your body. And then in the summer, UVB, or in the winter, the cold. The cold temperature hitting your skin, eyes, face, everything. NAD+ must be made, not taken. It doesn't work that way. And the sun is a master of your circadian rhythm. It controls everything. So you must get outside. And when you get a tan, you are properly stacking solar exposure when you do it right. You are increasing your exposure to red and infrared light first and slowly increasing your exposure to the strength and direction of the sun in UVA and then UVB until you have built up the natural tolerance that you would have had if you didn't spend your day living indoors and instead lived outside in tune with nature like we did for most of our existence as humans on this planet. So now let's connect the consequences of not having a tan to POMC. POMC is pro-opiomelanocortin, and it is a gene, a peptide, a protein. It also has a pathway, and it must be cleaved, and there are steps to that. And POMC is activated by UV light specifically. So you can't just say, well, I'm going to block from the UV so I don't get a tan, but I'm going to get my red and infrared light. Doesn't work. You need to activate POMC because if you don't activate POMC, your risk of disease goes up. Not just when it comes to things like metabolism, fat, having problems with insulin, because all of those are really critically tied to POMC signaling. POMC must be triggered in order for you to have a proper modulation of the P53 gene, which is really important for cancer and tumor growth. Otherwise, your risk of cancer goes up and your risk of healing goes down. POMC also plays an incredible critical role in hormones and cortisol because of its effect on the hypothalamus and the HPA-HPG axes. Also, when you cleave POMC, you trigger alpha MSH, which is another piece to the danger of not getting a tan because alpha MSH is triggered by UVB light and it's triggered by cold temperatures you would get in the winter in places where there is no UVB light. You must properly trigger alpha MSH. And when you don't have full spectrum sunlight, it can behave incorrectly. And that is not a good thing because alpha MSH plays a critical role for your skin pigmentation. So making sure you have nice, evenly pigmented skin and a tan because it controls melanocytes, which is what helps you make a tan. But it's also really important for immune cells, T cells. It's very important for regulating autoimmunity as well, which we're going to get into in further detail right now because UVB light, when it hits your skin, has an effect on your immune system, specifically on your T cells, which allow you to reduce your potential for getting autoimmunity and they modulate your immune system. So it has an immune dampening effect, but it's selective. It doesn't shut off your immune system like taking drugs does. It has a specifically targeted effect. And oddly enough, you actually need to have a small level of DNA damage to your skin for this effect on the T cells to happen from a tan, from getting UVB light to hit your skin. This whole concept of it's damaging your skin, it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense when you look at it this way. Your skin must get hit by the UVB light, and that DNA must get to a certain extent damaged in order for it to regulate your T cells and have that powerfully beneficial effect on your immune function. And of course, the damage is rate limited because in the sun, you always have a minimum of 49% red and infrared light. Properly stimulating all of your non-visual receptors by getting the full spectrum of the sun's light, including UV light, is important because not only is it doing all of these things that we just discussed, but it's also increasing oxygen levels in your cells. And we know that reduced oxygen levels is always connected to tumor growth and cancer states, and also connected to a number of other major diseases. We also know that loss of melanin and melanin inside your body, because you have melanin in your brain, is always present when you have major diseases like Parkinson's and Alzheimer's and the like. So losing melanin is a bad idea. You need to restore your melanin. It's time to go out there and build a tan.